Picture this. It's April 5, 1994. Kurt Cobain is dead. As we're in the first 7 seconds of the video, I prefer not to enter details about how he was gone. Daddy YouTube doesn't like it. But he was. And with him went grunge's messiah and savior. This is the story of how grunge died. Not slowly, not gracefully, but violently and publicly, like a car crash you can't look away from. It's the story of how corporate America took rebellion, packaged it, and sold it back to the rebels until they forgot why they were rebelling in the first place. But mostly, it's the story of what happened next, the aftermath, the scrambling, the desperate attempts to resurrect something that was already rotting from the inside. Let's start with the immediate carnage. April 1994. Kurt is dead. MTV is playing Smells Like Teen Spirit on repeat like it's a funeral dirge. Suddenly, everyone's an expert on grunge's deeper meaning. Rolling Stone is writing think pieces about the death of alternative culture. Meanwhile, Dave Grohl is locked in his basement, writing songs that sound like he's trying to forget Nirvana ever existed. The remaining grunge bands are shell-shocked. Pearl Jam retreats so far from the mainstream, they practically become a cult. Eddie Vedder grows his hair long, starts wearing hemp necklaces, and writes songs about abortion and corporate corruption. Vitalogy in late '94 is their most experimental album. Weird time signatures, avant-garde interludes, lyrics that read like manifestos scribbled on napkins during a panic attack. It's brilliant, but it's also the sound of a band trying to escape their own success. Alice in Chains releases their self-titled album in '95, and it's darker than anything they've ever done. Lane Staley is barely human at this point. Jerry Cantrell is carrying the band on his back while writing songs like Heaven Beside You and Over Now that sound like eulogies for the living. The album is haunting, beautiful, and feels like a goodbye letter. Because it basically is. Lane disappears into his apartment and doesn't come out for years. Soundgarden tries to soldier on. Down on the Upside in '96 is arguably their best album. Blow Up the Outside World becomes a hit. Burden in My Hand showcases Chris Cornell's vocal range, and Pretty Noose is depression set to a perfect melody. But they're competing with their own imitators now. How do you stay relevant when everyone else is playing your game? And that's when the vultures really start circling. The record labels smell blood in the water. Suddenly, every A&R guy in America is looking for the next Nirvana. They're signing anyone who owns a distortion pedal and a flannel shirt. The result is post-grunge, grunge's zombie corpse being puppeted by people who completely miss the point. Bush releases 16 Stone in '94, and it's like someone fed a computer every Nirvana song and asked it to write new ones. Gavin Rossdale has Kurt's haircut, the band has the Seattle sound, but there's something fundamentally hollow about it. Songs like Everything Zen and Glycerine are well-crafted, but they're grunge karaoke. They're performing depression rather than living it. Stone Temple Pilots are actually good, which makes their existence even more frustrating. Scott Weiland has a voice that could rival Chris Cornell, and Purple in '94 is genuinely great. Interstate Love Song is a perfect rock song, but they're forever doomed to be seen as Nirvana knockoffs even when they're clearly more than that. Live drops Throwing Copper in '94, and suddenly everyone's talking about spiritual awakening. Ed Kowalczyk is singing about mystical experiences while sounding like he's trying to cough up a hairball. Lightning Crashes becomes a massive hit, but it's earnest to the point of parody. The most tragic case is Silverchair, 3 teenagers from Australia who sound like they learned to play instruments by listening to Nevermind on repeat. Frog Stomp is impressive for what it is, but it's also proof that grunge has become a style you can learn rather than something you live. By 1995, the pattern is clear. Record labels have figured out the formula. Take grunge's sound, remove its soul, add radio-friendly hooks, and market it to suburban kids who think flannel is a personality trait. Filter, Local H, Toadies, Candlebox, Collective Soul. Suddenly, every band sounds like they're trying to recreate 1991. But 1991 was lightning in a bottle. You can't recreate desperation when you're being paid to be desperate. And then something interesting happens. While America is busy commodifying its own rebellion, Britain is having its own musical revolution. Enter Britpop. If grunge was depression made manifest, Britpop was cocaine confidence set to a backbeat. It's 1994, and British bands are sick of being told that American music is the future. They're like, fuck that, we invented rock music. Oh, and by the way, they didn't.
Blur releases Parklife in '94, and it's like a love letter to British culture wrapped in perfect pop songs. Damon Albarn is writing about London life with wit and melody. It's smart, it's catchy, and it's everything grunge isn't. Optimistic, literate, and proud of where it comes from. But the real phenomenon is Oasis. Oh, Oasis. Where do we even begin with Oasis? Liam Gallagher is a working-class kid from Manchester who thinks he's John Lennon reincarnated. Noel Gallagher is his older brother, who might actually be John Lennon reincarnated. Together, they're the most arrogant, brilliant, self-destructive band Britain has produced since the Sex Pistols. Definitely Maybe drops in August 1994, and it's like someone injected pure confidence directly into the British music scene. While American bands are wallowing in self-pity, Oasis is writing anthems for people who refuse to be defeated, even when the world outside them tries to. Live Forever is the anti-grunge song. It's about hope, about believing in something bigger than yourself, about refusing to accept that things can't get better, even when you're in pain. Rock and Roll Star opens the album like a manifesto. Liam's sneering vocals over Noel's wall of guitars, declaring that anyone can be a rock star if they just believe hard enough. It's naive, it's beautiful, and it's everything grunge forgot to be. Supersonic is even better. It's barely coherent lyrically, but it doesn't matter because it captures something essential about youth and possibility. When Liam sings, "I need to be myself, I can't be no one else," it's not depression, it's defiance. The crown jewel is Live Forever. While Kurt Cobain is singing about not wanting to be here, Liam is singing about living forever. It's the most British response to American angst imaginable. You're sad? Well, we're going to be magnificent. But here's the thing about Oasis. They're not just making music, they're making mythology. Noel is writing songs that sound like they were discovered in some alternate universe where the Beatles never broke up. He's stealing from everyone, the Sex Pistols, the Stone Roses, T-Rex, but he's doing it with such conviction that it feels like originality. The live shows are religious experiences. Liam prowls the stage like a caged animal, hands clasped behind his back, singing like he's trying to wake the dead. The crowd sings every word back at him. It's community in a way that grunge never was. What's the Story Morning Glory in '95 is even bigger. Wonderwall becomes the song that everyone knows, even if they hate it. Don't Look Back in Anger is Noel's masterpiece, an anthem about forgiveness and moving forward. Champagne Supernova is 7 minutes of pure escapism. But the real genius of Oasis is that they're selling hope to a generation that's been told hope is naive. While American bands are singing about how much everything sucks, Oasis is singing about everything could be amazing if you just believe hard enough. The cultural impact is immediate. British music suddenly matters again. Blur versus Oasis becomes the defining rivalry of the '90s. The Stone Roses reform. Pulp becomes massive. Radiohead starts making weirder music. The whole British music scene explodes. And the Americans? They're confused. How do you compete with bands that are actively optimistic? How do you sell angst to people who are buying transcendence? The answer is, you don't. You double down. Enter nu metal, the final nail in grunge's coffin. Sepultura, those Brazilian metal gods, released Roots in '96. They were taking thrash metal and mixing it with tribal rhythms, hip-hop influences, and raw, primal energy that felt completely disconnected from grunge's suburban angst. Korn released their self-titled album in '94, and it's like grunge had a baby with hip-hop and raised it on a diet of childhood trauma. Jonathan Davis is basically doing spoken word poetry over the heaviest riffs ever recorded. It's weird, it's unsettling, and it's everything grunge could have been if it had been more adventurous. But then Limp Bizkit happens. Fred Durst takes nu metal and turns it into frat boy rage. $3 Bill Y'all in '97 is grunge's corpse being puppet danced by someone who completely missed the point. It's aggressive without being meaningful, heavy without being deep. By 1998, nu metal is everywhere. Linkin Park, Papa Roach, Disturbed, and Stained, they're taking grunge's heaviness and combining it with rap swagger. The result is music that sounds dangerous, but is actually incredibly safe. It's rebellion by committee. The late 90s are weird. Radiohead releases OK Computer in '97, and it's like they're pointing towards a future that has nothing to do with Seattle. It's electronic, it's experimental, and it's proof that rock music can evolve beyond power chords and angst. The Smashing Pumpkins release Adore in '98, and it's basically Billy Corgan's electronic album. It's beautiful, it's brave, and it's commercial suicide. They're trying to move beyond the grunge template, but nobody wants to follow them. Meanwhile, the underground is fighting back.
Pavement releases Crooked Rain in '94, and it's like grunge's art school cousin. Stephen Malkmus writes songs that sound like they were recorded in a garage, but they're actually incredibly sophisticated. Cut Your Hair is a direct shot at the music industry's obsession with image. Built to Spill is making music that sounds like what would happen if grunge went to therapy. Doug March's guitar work is intricate, beautiful, and completely unpretentious. There's Nothing Wrong with Love in '94 is a masterclass in emotional honesty without the melodrama. Elliott Smith is taking grunge's emotional core and stripping away everything else. His self-titled album in '95 is heartbreaking in ways that make Alice in Chains sound optimistic. He's whispering where grunge screamed, and somehow it hits harder. Modest Mouse releases The Lonesome Crowded West in '97, and it's like grunge's weird, brilliant nephew. Isaac Brock writes songs about existential dread and suburban alienation, but he does it with joy. It's depressing and uplifting at the same time. But the mainstream doesn't care about any of this. The mainstream wants easy. By 1999, grunge is officially dead. Woodstock '99 happens, and it's like watching Western civilization collapse in real time. Limp Bizkit is inciting riots, Korn is playing to crowds that look like they're auditioning for Lord of the Flies, and somewhere in the distance, you can hear the faint sound of Kurt Cobain spinning in his grave. The 2000s become a battlefield. Nu metal dominates the mainstream. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory in 2000 is the sound of a generation that grew up on grunge but wants something more aggressive. It's polished, it's powerful, and it's everything grunge warned us about. On the other side, indie rock is quietly building its own ecosystem. The Strokes release Is This It in 2001, and suddenly everyone remembers that rock music can be cool without being heavy. The White Stripes are making music that sounds like it was discovered in 1965. Yeah Yeah Yeahs are proving that art school kids can rock harder than anyone. And then there's emo, taking grunge's emotional honesty and applying it to punk's energy. Dashboard Confessional, Taking Back Sunday, My Chemical Romance, they're writing songs about feelings, but they're doing it with conviction. It's what grunge might have become if it had been made by theater kids instead of dropouts. The tragedy is that all of these movements, post-grunge, nu metal, garage rock revival, indie rock, emo, they're all trying to capture something that grunge had naturally, that sense of authenticity, that feeling that the music mattered. But authenticity can't be manufactured. It can only be lived. Elliott Smith dies in 2003, and it feels like the final death of grunge's spirit. He was the last connection to that original feeling, that sense that music could be a lifeline for people who felt abandoned by the world. Lane Staley dies in 2002, and it's like watching the last true believer disappear. He never sold out, never compromised, never pretended to be anything other than what he was. His death is the end of grunge's innocence. Chris Cornell dies in 2017, and it's like watching the last dinosaur disappear. Soundgarden was the most musically adventurous of the grunge bands, and Chris was the most technically gifted vocalist. His death feels like the end of an era that had already ended decades earlier. But here's the thing about grunge. It accomplished exactly what it set out to do. It killed hair metal. It proved that you didn't need to be pretty or polished to matter. It gave voice to a generation that felt abandoned by the American dream. The bands that survived did so by remembering what grunge was actually about. Not the flannel or the attitude or the sound, but the honesty, the willingness to be vulnerable in public, the understanding that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is admit you're not okay. Pearl Jam is still touring, still fighting the good fight, still making music that matters. Dave Grohl became a rock dad, proving that you can survive the grunge wars without becoming bitter, besides committing adultery and negating HIV. And the influence? It's everywhere. Every indie rock band that records in their bedroom, every metal band that admits they have feelings, every pop song that uses distortion, grunge's DNA is woven into the fabric of popular culture. In the end, grunge died because it was too good, too real, too honest for a world that wants rebellion in bite-sized, marketable chunks. But for 3 years, from 1991 to 1994, grunge was the most important thing happening in music. It changed everything.